There is a thought you have been carrying. Maybe you carry it in the morning, before the day has had a chance to fill itself with noise. Maybe it finds you at night, right in that quiet moment when your phone is face down and the room is dark and there is nothing left to distract you from yourself. A name, a face, a feeling you cannot fully explain but also cannot fully put down. And here is what no one has told you yet. The fact that you keep thinking about this person is not just about them. It never was. Stay with me here, because what I am about to walk you through is not a simple love story. It is not a reassurance reel. It is something older and deeper than that. It is the story of what happens inside a woman when she forms an emotional bond that goes unfinished. When the connection was real, but the resolution never came. When she is left holding something that has no clean place to be set down. Carl Jung once wrote that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And I want to offer you something similar tonight. Everything that draws you back to this person, the replaying of conversations, the wondering, the hope that keeps quietly reigniting itself, no matter how many times you try to reason it away. All of it is pointing you somewhere, not necessarily toward them, toward you. But first, let us talk about them. Because yes, what you feel about their feelings is not entirely wrong. The person you keep thinking about does carry something real for you, not in the way romance movies show it, where love announces itself loudly and shows up consistently and never leaves you guessing. What they carry for you is quieter than that, more private, more complicated. It lives in the space between what they say and what they mean, between what they show and what they feel, between the warmth you experienced with them and the silence that followed. Here is the truth about people who pull away from something meaningful. They are not always running from you. Sometimes they are running from the version of themselves they become around you. And that is a profoundly different thing to understand. When you feel deeply familiar to someone, when something about you reaches a part of them that does not get reached very often, it can feel like sunlight to a part of them that has been living in the shade. And sunlight, especially when you are not used to it, does not always feel comfortable. It exposes, it warms places that have been cold for so long that warmth itself starts to feel like a threat. This is what Jung called the shadow encounter. When another person unknowingly mirrors back the parts of us we have never fully integrated, the longing, the vulnerability, the capacity for deep connection, it can produce one of two responses. Either we move toward it, drawn by something we cannot name, or we retreat, overwhelmed by the emotional depth of what is being asked of us, even when nothing is being asked at all. The person you think about may be living in that retreat right now, not because their feelings are absent, but because their feelings are present in a way they do not know how to hold. You may have experienced moments with them where something shifted, where the conversation went somewhere unexpected and real, where a look lasted a half-second too long, where there was a tenderness between you that neither of you named out loud. Those moments were not your imagination. They were not wishful thinking dressed up as memory. They happened, and they happened because on some level, something genuine exists between you. But here is where I need to slow you down, because this is the part that matters most. Knowing that someone cares, truly accepting it as real, is not the same as knowing what to do with that knowledge. And if you have been waiting for their feelings to translate into something clear, something consistent, something that finally gives you solid ground to stand on, you may be waiting for something they are genuinely not capable of giving you right now. Not because you are not worth it, but because emotional availability is not automatic. It has to be built, sometimes from rubble, sometimes from scratch. And not everyone is at that stage of construction yet. The feelings between you are real. And also, real feelings are sometimes not enough. Let me tell you about a pattern that Jung identified in the psychology of relationships. He described it in the context of what he called the anima, the deep feminine principle that lives within every man's psyche. When a man encounters a woman who stirs his anima powerfully, it can produce an almost irrational pull. Not just desire in the surface sense, but something that feels like recognition, like she represents something he has been searching for inside himself without knowing it. This kind of pull is intoxicating for him and terrifying, because when someone becomes the external symbol of your inner longing, you stop being able to see them clearly. You start projecting onto them all the warmth you wish you could access in yourself, all the emotional wholeness you have not yet found. And then the fear arrives. What if I disappoint her? What if she sees me fully and pulls away? What if I reach for this and it shatters? So instead of reaching, he retreats. He creates distance, not because the feeling is gone, but because the feeling is enormous and he does not trust himself inside it. And you have been standing on the other side of that distance, trying to decode the silence, trying to figure out if it means he has moved on, or if he is just afraid, or if you somehow did something wrong, or if the whole thing was a story you told yourself that he never agreed to be part of. That uncertainty lives in your body, doesn't it? It sits somewhere between your chest and your stomach. It wakes up when you see something that reminds you of him. It turns a random song into a 3-minute journey back into a feeling you have been trying to outgrow. And here is what I want you to understand about that experience, that ache, that loop, that returning. It is not weakness. It is not neediness. It is not evidence that you care too much or that you are somehow broken. It is evidence that you are someone who feels deeply, who attaches with meaning, who does not treat emotional bonds as disposable or casual. In a world that increasingly rewards emotional detachment as a form of strength, your capacity for depth is not your flaw. It is one of your most profound qualities. But, and this is where Jung becomes essential, that capacity also has a shadow side. Jung taught that the parts of ourselves we do not examine are the parts that run us. The unconscious doesn't disappear when we ignore it. It simply finds other ways to express itself. And one of the most powerful ways the unconscious expresses itself is through who we become attached to and why. There is a question I want to ask you, and I want you to sit with it rather than answer it quickly. When you think about this person, when you replay what was between you, when you feel the longing, what is the deeper feeling underneath the longing? Not the surface feeling of missing them, the feeling underneath that, the one that has been there longer than this particular person has been in your life. Is it a longing to be fully chosen, to be seen completely and not found lacking, to feel certain that someone who pulls away will come back, to prove that love, when it feels this real, does not disappear? Because sometimes the person we cannot stop thinking about is not just a person. They are a living symbol of something our own inner world is working to resolve. Jung called this projection, when we unconsciously place our own unmet emotional needs onto another person and then relate to the projection as though it is them. This does not mean your feelings are fake. It does not mean the connection was not real. It means the connection touched something ancient and unfinished inside you. And that touch was so significant that your psyche is using this person as a screen onto which it is projecting everything it still needs to understand about love, worthiness, and safety. The person you keep thinking about matters. And also, you are partly thinking about yourself when you think about them. This is not meant to diminish what you shared. It is meant to expand your understanding of it. Because here is what happens when we do not recognize the projection, when we keep looking outward for the resolution of something that is asking to be resolved inward. We stay in the waiting. We stay in the loop of analyzing their behavior, decoding their silence, measuring every small sign of warmth against the uncertainty of their distance. And while we wait, life is happening. Our own emotional growth is paused at the door of someone else's healing. I want to tell you a story. Imagine a woman who grew up watching love be inconsistent. Not cruel, never abusive, just unreliable. A parent who was sometimes deeply present and sometimes emotionally unavailable. A childhood where affection existed but had to be earned or waited for. Where connection was real but never quite stable. As a child, she learned to be hyper-aware. She learned to read moods, to watch for shifts in energy, to calibrate her own behavior based on the emotional climate around her. She became extraordinarily perceptive, able to sense what others felt before they said a word. This is a survival skill dressed up as a superpower. Now, she is grown, and she meets someone who moves her, someone who is sometimes profoundly warm and sometimes strangely distant, someone whose affection, when it arrives, feels extraordinary, precisely because it is not always present. And her nervous system, trained in childhood to find this pattern familiar, does not experience this as a red flag. It experiences it as home. Not because inconsistency is good for her, but because inconsistency is known to her. And the unconscious mind is drawn to what is known, even when what is known causes pain, even when what is known keeps her in a perpetual state of emotional reaching, never quite arriving, never quite landing. This is the cycle Jung described when he talked about the repetition compulsion within relationships. We unconsciously recreate familiar emotional dynamics because the psyche is trying to complete something it never got to finish. It is trying to rewrite the ending, to finally receive the consistent love that was once uncertain, to finally be chosen without condition. And so we chase the person who sometimes feels close and sometimes feels distant because somewhere beneath conscious awareness, we believe that if we can just get this one right, something deeper will finally heal. Do you feel that? Does any part of that land somewhere familiar inside you? Because if it does, if something in you just quietly exhaled and said, yes, then this moment is important. Not because you need to abandon the connection you feel for this person, but because you need to understand what that connection is carrying on your behalf. The person you keep thinking about may genuinely care. Their feelings may be as real as yours, but the intensity of your return to them, the way your mind circles back, the way the longing feels almost involuntary, that is not simply about them. That is your soul, your unconscious self, handing you a map. And the destination on that map is not them. It is a deeper understanding of yourself. This is what Jung meant when he said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Real connection changes you. And the change it asks of you is not always the change you expected. You expected love to look like arrival, like the distance closes and the silence ends and everything settles into warmth and certainty. But sometimes love, in its deepest Jungian sense, arrives not as a union with another person, but as a forced confrontation with yourself, with your own wounds, your own patterns, your own unconscious beliefs about whether you are worthy of being consistently loved. The person you think about is not doing anything wrong by being human, by being complex, by being someone who carries their own unresolved interior. And neither are you. But here is the realization I want to leave you with, and I want you to really receive it. You are not responsible for their emotional readiness. You cannot love someone into availability. You cannot make yourself small enough or patient enough or understanding enough to unlock another person's capacity for vulnerability before they have done the inner work to get there themselves. That is not your job. That was never your job. Your job, if we are using Jung as our guide here, is individuation, the lifelong process of becoming more fully yourself, of integrating your shadow, understanding your projections, and choosing connection not from a place of old wounds seeking to be healed by a new person, but from a place of wholeness, reaching toward wholeness. And the extraordinary thing about this process is that it does not require you to stop caring about this person. It simply requires you to care about yourself with equal intensity, to hold your own feelings with the same tenderness that you extend toward theirs. Because here is what I believe about you, about anyone who has stayed this long in this conversation, who has let these words move through them, who recognizes their own experience in what has been described. You are not someone who loves carelessly. You are not someone who attaches without depth. When you feel something, you feel it with your whole interior. And that is rare. That is genuinely, beautifully rare in a world that often rewards those who feel less. But you deserve more than someone whose feelings for you live in silence and distance. You deserve more than love that exists only in theory, in someone's private thoughts, in imagined conversations that never get spoken out loud. You deserve love that shows up. Not perfectly, no one is perfect, but consistently, honestly, with the willingness to be seen even when being seen feels frightening. And the path to that love, the path to the relationship that actually matches your depth, begins not with waiting for someone else to become ready, but with you becoming fully, unapologetically present to your own worth. The loop in your mind, the thoughts that return to this person, Tuman. Do not fight them. Do not shame yourself for having them, but begin to ask them different questions. Instead of asking why they are distant, ask what this dynamic is showing you about what you have accepted as normal in love. Instead of wondering if they miss you, ask what you would feel, what you would believe, what would become possible for you if you were as certain of your own value as you want them to be. Jung said the greatest tragedy is not what happens to us, but what happens within us when we fail to grow from it. This experience, the longing, the uncertainty, the wanting of someone who is somehow both present and absent, this is not just a story about another person. This is one of the most profound invitations your inner life has ever extended to you. The person you keep thinking about genuinely cares, and also you are allowed to stop building your peace around whether or not they show it. You are allowed to be the love story, not the person waiting in it. That is not closing your heart. That is finally fully opening it to yourself first. And from that place, from that deep internal arrival, every connection you form going forward will carry a different quality, not the breathless uncertainty of someone hoping to be chosen, but the quiet, rooted gravity of a woman who knows, who genuinely knows, that she is already whole. The silence between you and this person holds something real. Honor it, but do not live inside it. Because you were not made to wait at the edge of someone else's becoming. You were made to become fully, completely on your own terms. And when you do, when you finally stop asking whether they see you clearly and begin to see yourself clearly, everything changes. Not necessarily them, but you. And that change is the one that lasts. That change is the one no silence, no distance, no unanswered feeling can ever take from you.